Man, ladies and gentlemen, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. It is, what is it? Thursday. We're almost there, people. We're almost there. So, anyways, we're moving on into a new topic. Her name is Sydney Powell. Now, if you guys haven't heard the name before, let me refresh y'all real quick. Powell is accused for, removing her mother from this planet. That's the way I like to say things. She got rid of her. She took her out. That hence the thumbnail with the X over her mom's face. So we're gonna go ahead and break this down. Whenever there's a kid that their parents or some shit like this, I feel like there's a deep-rooted issue in the household, and all the dirty laundry gets aired out. So we're gonna go ahead and check this out. Make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you guys comment and subscribe. But make sure you guys like the video if you guys want to see some more of the Sydney Powell saga, because it's going to be an interesting one. Her dad speaks. We're going to see her grandmother speak right now. And it's going to be crazy. So let's, without further ado, let's get straight into this, people.
So let's talk about Brenda, if we could, for a second. What kind of person was Brenda?
Brenda was...
So we have Brenda Powell and we have Sydney Powell. Sydney's the one who took out Brenda, just so you know. This is the third generation of the Powells, up the hill. This is grandma.
The sweetest child, always respectful. The story I always said about them when they were kids was the only time that she was ever the one in trouble was if she got between me and my son when I was trying to get to him. And it was just, she just was always a good child. Very gentle, very loving. You really never heard a raised voice or anything from her.
Damn, you tell me your mom's favorite without telling me your mom's favorite. That's funny, but hey, it's true though. You have a problem child, and then sometimes you have a problem-less child. It's just one of them things. Usually, the problem child turns out to be really strong and successful though. So, it ain't always bad to have a problem child. You just have to know how to deal with them. You know what I'm saying?
She dedicated her life after college to advocating for children at Akron Children's Hospital on the oncology hematology floor. And I was amazed that she was able to stay on that same floor for so many years, because it's such a difficult thing when children are ill and when children die. And she did. She stayed all those years with it. Many Christmas Eves that she would call and say, "Mom, I'm just going to have to go back to the hospital because some of the children don't have family coming in and I want to be there for them."
Man, that's too much for me, man. That is way too much for me. Never signed me up to be a doctor or a nurse or any of that shit. It's just too much. Like me, things affect me too much. I'm still thinking about shit that happened a decade ago and it's just there. You know what I mean? I can't do that shit. I would have the worst mental health on the planet. I'm too sensitive for that shit. So, shout out to the mom. Shout out to her. Rest in peace.
So she did. She always was with us on Christmas Day, but she sometimes didn't make it for Christmas Eve. But she was, I'm sorry, am I taking
It's okay. No,
she was always the organizer and the family gatherer. And Bob and I went to Disney World with them, and she made all the plans, and she would call me to ask me, "Is this okay and is that okay?" And I said, "Brenda, just give me the dollar amount at the end and I'm happy." So she planned everything, and it was wonderful because we would have never planned a trip like that on our own. So yes, that was my daughter.
Okay, thank you.
Man, she knew her daughter really well. She knew her daughter really well. Now, the thing is, I don't understand how you take this love from your mother, transfer it to your daughter, and your daughter ends up stabbing you. There's got to be something in between where something went wrong. You know what I mean? Because their relationship seemed beautiful. So what's going on here, guys? Was it the mom's fault or was it the daughter's fault? Now, obviously, the daughter's on the stand. So, she's guilty for what she did, but I wonder what pushed it to that point.
What kind of mom was she?
Yeah.
She was a wonderful mom.
Was she?
She worried about her kids all the time. And probably one of the reasons she waited a little longer than some to have children is because of what she had seen in the hospital. But we were just thrilled when they announced that they were pregnant. And from day one, she just was wonderful with the kids. Both of them. Steve was wonderful with them too as they got older and played out in the yard and so forth. He was always we had a lot of picnics at our place on the weekends, and the two of them were outside with the kids all the time. Or sitting on the swing. I have a vision in my mind of the two of them I've got a bench swing that my husband built, and the two of them are sitting on the swing, but they're both sitting in the middle, side by side. There was room for other people on both ends. They didn't have to squeeze in, but they did. That was their natural state.
Yeah, say a little more, if you could, about the relationship that you saw between Brenda and Sydney.
Now, this is the relationship I need to know about, because everything's all love and beauty and amazement and rainbows and Jolly Ranchers, but there's for sure problems in the family that she's not bringing out. So you already know prosecution's going to bring that shit out. I don't even know if this is prosecution or defense. It sounds like it's prosecution, though. But there was definitely problems between that mom and that daughter. Not her and her daughter, but Brenda and Sydney. So let's see what happened.
What was that like?
Well, that's what I say. She was just they were always side by side.
They were always side by side, but would they argue a lot? Because, again, like, my sister is really close to my dad. Their personalities are, like, the same. They never got along. They would argue, fight, like, all types of just, traumatic shit. I feel like this may have been the same case, that she was full of love, all of this, but her daughter was so much like her that they start to argue like cats and dogs. But we'll find out.
She was very proud of her. She went to all of her soccer games, all of them. I offered to buy her one of those little huts that are see-through, so in the cold weather she could sit in it. She says, "Mom, I'm not going to sit in that." But anyways, we went to some of the games that were closer to us that we could go see. But she just loved to do that. They did everything together. They took us for a girls' day and took me to a tea room, someplace up here somewhere, and for lunch. And I mean, it was just always Sydney and Brenda that were together.
Damn. Okay.
And I assume you guys.
So she went to Sydney's games. She went to. Oh, you're leaving, Izzy? You're leaving? Don't leave yet. Oh. All that shedding. What's up with all the shedding, girl? What's up with all the shedding? Now she's not going because she just got some love. But anyways, yeah, okay. So always together, huh? Brenda and Sydney. What was I don't get that. If you guys are so tight, how did that happen?
You guys got together for milestones, first communion, graduation.
First communion,
like
confirmation, graduation.
Turn on. Thank you.
One thing I'm going to say about her as well is that she's super alert. Like sometimes they'll be like, the witness isn't good enough because they're a bit, their testimony wasn't that good. Her testimony is solid. She knows all the details. She'll tell you all the tea.
So I'm going to show you what we marked as defendant's exhibit. Sorry. X. I know it's out of order. That was my fault. X. What is that, Ms. Brown?
That's us, I think, at her graduation. At Sydney's graduation. Is that what it is? She's got a...
So she's got the St. B colors on and the cap and gown?
Yeah.
So who are those folks in that picture?
Her brother Andrew, my husband, Sydney, and I.
Okay. Defendant's Exhibit Y. Who are those folks?
That's Sydney and her other set of grandparents, Michelle and Ron.
Okay. And just very briefly, Defendant's Exhibit Z, this is Sydney's ID from 2020.
Yes,
And Sydney's listed at 5'1", 100 pounds. Is that what she weighed and her height around March of 2020?
yes.
Okay.
5'1" and 100 pounds, and you took out a grown ass woman. Shit.
What about in high school, before Sydney went to Mount Union? What kind of student was she? What kind of grades did she get, if you know?
She was an excellent student and just involved in school. She enjoyed school.
She was involved in any sports?
Soccer.
You mentioned
Yeah.
soccer? Okay. And was Sydney ever in trouble in school? Any suspensions, any fights, anything like that?
No,
Was she the kind of kid that had a temper, a short fuse, would yell, argue?
no.
So what was the issue? Man, we need to see Sydney testify. That's what we need to see. I don't even know if she did, but if we need to see her testify, we need to know what was in her head. You're a perfect student. You're always hanging out with your mom. Like, you know, your parents love you. Sure, there's issues in the family. I'm not even going to get into that. Everybody has issues. But it's like, where did this come from? Unless she wasn't thinking and she was just mad and just did something to her. And it was like, oh my God, what did I do? But even then, it's kind of like, that's hard to believe.
What kind of kid was Sydney?
Sydney was always a sweet child. She was a lot like her mother in that she was quiet spoken most of the time. We laughed and so forth, but she was a worrier, a little bit of a worrier, and but child worrier type things, like worrying about overrunning a bucket in the barn or something. But other than that, she was always sweet and kind. They also spent a lot of time doing puzzles together and, you know, quiet time that they spent together.
Did you ever see or hear about Sydney and Brenda fighting or arguing or talking disrespectful?
This is what we need to know. And don't you lie, because she's already gone. You know, this, for your daughter's sake, don't you lie. I know they were fighting. Come on now. Like, if they weren't, how did this even happen?
Respectful to each other?
No, never.
So let's talk for a second about March 3rd of 2020. Did you hear from Brenda that morning?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe that?
Yes, I had a phone call from Brenda while she was on her way to work. And I thank God I picked up the phone, was with the phone. But she just chatted a little bit about Sydney coming home and the plans over the break, that they were planning to go shopping. And we talked a little bit about whether I could meet them part way and go too. And then that was it. She had to run into work, so.
Okay.
Damn, that must be tough, man. Sometimes I wish I lived closer to my mom, just, you know, just so we could go shopping or do something. But, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough. At least she got to talk to her that day. If she didn't answer that phone call, that would have just been some more of not having closure. You know, at least she got to speak to her that day.
So I think we heard that I think spring break was coming up for Mount Union.
Yes.
Was Brenda mad at Sydney? Was she upset? Was
No.
she looking
No.
forward to her coming home?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And
not Powell. Sydney was gone. Okay, so they hadn't seen each other in a while. That might be a bit of like some background story. Maybe she got her head filled with some shit, but I don't know. Let's continue.
were present at the hospital, I believe, when Sydney was at Akron City Hospital. Detective Bertina King was there. Do you recall that?
Yes, actually, I was at the hospital much earlier than that, and they told me that she was not there.
Okay.
Then eventually, it seemed like forever, Steve called and told us to go to a different hospital. So we all piled in the car, and his brother drove us over to the other hospital, which was apparently where Brenda was.
Okay.
They refused to let me see her at all, and still weren't giving out any information. But after we were there for a while, they sent us back over to the original hospital. And I'm sorry, I can't give you the names
That's
of
okay.
which
That's
is
all right.
which right now. But it turns out Sydney was at the hospital where they had us waiting all afternoon. And the detective lady met us in the lobby then, and I knew when she took us to a room instead of up to see Sydney that this wasn't gonna end well.
Yeah.
So
Damn, bro. Yeah, when you know something's bad and you just know it, and then they confirm it, it's a bad feeling, man. It's like, it's like something that's been coming for a long time, and you know it was coming. Maybe a relationship, maybe like, I don't know, maybe a job that is gonna fire you eventually. You know it's coming because you keep doing the same thing, or you know it's coming because like you've seen this before, but you're just not sure, and you don't want to like fully believe it yet. I know that feeling.
she spent the first few minutes getting her little recording device on.
Well, let me stop you there before we get into what Detective King said. That's okay. I think what I was trying to get at, and I apologize, is Sydney was released from the hospital, and then she was taken to the Summit County Jail and charged with Brenda's murder. You remember that?
Yes, and I don't know exactly when that took place.
Okay, that's fine. What I was trying to get to is within a day or two.
You could tell the way she's shaking her head and moving around and fidgeting, she's trying to keep from crying. This is years of understanding your body and knowing how to keep yourself from crying. I'll tell you that much. Oh, yeah. It's tough, man. It's tough to watch.
His bond was posted.
Yes,
Is that a decision that you and the family supported?
absolutely.
Okay. And Sydney was released from the Summit County Jail and I think went to the Akron General Medical Center Psychiatric Hospital.
Yes,
And I think we heard she was there from March 7th through March 16th. Does that
correct,
sound about
yes.
Okay. All right. And you were aware, or were you aware of a diagnosis that Sydney had when she came out of Akron
Man,
General?
there's all these damn diagnoses and diagnoses and all this bullshit, man. I understand people who have issues, but the amount of diagnosis that they put on people, sometimes I feel like it's like over-diagnosing. Like, oh yeah, we'll give you all these drugs to just terminate your whole brain, to terminate all your brain cells. You'll just be a vegetable smiling all day. I don't know. But let's see what she had.
General Medical Center.
Yes,
What was it?
schizophrenia,
Okay.
and there were some other, I think.
And you know that once you commit this type of a crime, they're going to quickly take you to an expert to try to give you, a background way out. Like, oh, she's schizophrenic. Oh, she's bipolar, this and that. This only happens when your defense is weak, bro. To go ahead and get I don't know if you guys remember Alexis Avila, that case we did. They got, they did the same thing. They got an expert, a psychologist, and they said she was like bipolar and did all these crazy things. And this is your last resort when your client really just doesn't have any defense. Say she's crazy. Yeah, she was crazy. Pretty much. The crazy plea. That's pretty much all they got.
Things to be checked out.
Okay. And the decision was made to have Sydney stay with you after she was released.
Yes,
Why was that?
Man, Sydney might kill your ass. You better be careful. Sydney over there smiling and writing drawings in her book and shit. Y'all better be careful of Sydney. Shit, I would have left her ass in jail. Figure that shit out, sweetheart. You killed my daughter? Whoa. Nah, figure that out, sweetheart. I don't know what's up with you.
well, first of all, Sydney was still, I think, very shocky and upset. Of course, I was still grieving. I felt all along that my Sydney couldn't have been in her right.
Objection. We understand. Just let me ask you this.
Anyways, we did it
That's
to
okay.
take Sydney to my home where I would be with her all the time.
Okay, and let me
And-
try to help a little bit. You weren't working at that time?
No,
Yeah, and was Bob working?
no.
Okay. Describe your house for the jury, if you could. What is your home like?
We live on a farm. We've got over 100 acres.
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of sit back by ourselves. It's a nice home. It's over 100 years old, but it's quiet. And I have animals, which Sydney has quite an affinity to. And I just felt it would be a good environment for her.
Okay. And you knew that Sydney was supposed to take some medication when she got out of Akron General Medical Center. You aware of
Yes,
that? Okay.
yes,
When Sydney first got out, was she taking her medication?
yes.
Can you describe, if you noticed, what effect did the medication have on Sydney in the beginning, for the first few months?
I felt that she was
Sedated.
still a bit, I don't know how to describe it, maybe glazed over a little bit. She took it like clockwork, but I felt that it was dragging her down a little bit until she adapted to it.
So was there a routine where Sydney would take her medication at the same time or same day?
She takes it at the same time every single day.
And did there come a time where you noticed any improvement in Sydney's kind of demeanor, her attitude, her personality, her thinking, her process, any of that?
Yes, her processing was improving. She started to have more facial expression and a little bit more shine to her eyes where she didn't seem so out of it all the time.
Yeah. You know, you kill your mom and we'll just throw some medication at you. Don't worry, sweetheart. The United States. I swear, this is not the answer, folks. Like dulling a person's mental state is not the answer. You're just band-aiding the problem. They're still fucked up. It's not changing anything. The pharmaceutical companies out here are making a killing by telling people that you just take this schizophrenic pill and everything will be rainbows. No, it's just gonna fuck your mind up. Don't listen to that bullshit.
It was
Now, again, there's some people who actually have to have it because they cannot function in society, but these little diagnoses and all these little, oh, I went to therapy and they said I had ADHD. Oh, they said I had schizophrenia. Now I take 15 medications a day. No, bro, they're draining your mind and they're taking your money.
It wasn't that she was out of it. I don't want to overspeak that, but she just had more of a glow to her. You could tell she was starting to feel better. She talked a little more. She was improving. It was obvious to me that she was improving.
Okay. And Sydney had a counselor during this whole time?
Yes.
And was she compliant? Was she seeing her counselor as well?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Were there times where Sydney would experience some breakthrough symptoms?
She did have an episode, apparently, where she felt that she was having some symptoms again, and she reported it immediately to her therapist and was advised to, I don't know if the therapist called the doctor or if Sydney called the doctor right now.
Okay, so simple. This is the simplest thing. The defense is that she's unwell in the brain and that she couldn't have known when she did that to her mom. So obviously, guys, give her less time. We're not trying to throw her in the loony bin. We're just trying to give her less time as the defense. That's their goal. And as prosecution, obviously, they're just trying to say, like, yeah, she knew what she was doing. There's no schizophrenia that's going to, like, cause her to do this. You know what I mean? But we'll see.
But the psychiatrist was notified immediately, and he changed her medication And that made a huge difference after that. She reported to me that her symptoms were settling down again. She wasn't hearing so many noises. And I could just tell a whole difference in her demeanor at that point, where she really was starting to be Sydney again.
Okay. So Sydney has spent just about every day with you since March 16, 2022.
Yes,
Do you think she's faking a serious mental
Exactly,
illness?
exactly, bro. This is defense, guys. This is defense. This is what we're doing so that our dumbass client doesn't go to jail forever. Now, will it work? I don't know. But this is definitely the defense they're going in. Oh, yeah. Suddenly she's schizophrenic, even though she's a perfect student in school, even though she gets along with everybody, even though this, that, and the other. But no, she has these big mental problems. Okay.
Okay. Is she responding to changes in the medication?
yes,
So we were coming up to this trial date, and did you have any conversations with the therapist or the psychiatrist about how Sydney might try to deal with the stress of a trial?
yes.
And what was done, if anything, that you know of?
He did make another adjustment on a temporary basis to help her with anxiety.
And that's her psychiatrist?
Yes, the psychiatrist.
Do you know his name by chance?
Yes, Dr. Smartnick.
Been her
Dr.
psychiatrist.
Smart Nick. Hey, Nick over there is pretty smart. Dr. Smart Nick. What kind of a name is that?
From the beginning,
from the very
yes.
beginning. Okay. So let me try to ask the question we've heard from Mr. Stano many times. I know you're not a psychologist, but have you seen signs and symptoms of mental health issues with Sydney?
Yes,
Okay, sure.
And you know Sydney, you know Brenda. Do you believe, Mrs. Brown, that Sydney would kill Brenda because she was suspended from Mount Union?
Objection. I'm going to sustain that objection as well.
Mrs. Brown, I don't have any further questions.
okay.
Damn. Okay, so that was pretty much Mrs. Brown. We had, we had her breaking shit down.
There might be some, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Hang
hold
on
on.
one second.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
there might be some from the
Prosecutor may
prosecutor.
have some questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I figured prosecution wanted to hand at that. But yeah, that was Miss Brown getting handed softball questions. Now we want to know about the real. Let's go ahead and see what prosecution's saying.
All right. Mr. Mackley's cross-examination.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Brown.
Good morning.
My name is Joe McAleese. I know you've been here most of trial and you've seen me ask some questions to other witnesses. And I promise, sir, I can tell you, just have a few questions, but like I've said to other witnesses, if I ask something that you don't understand or you need clarifying, you just let me know, okay? I want to first talk about Brenda. We've heard from her coworkers, we've heard from you, we've heard from Mr. Powell. Brenda was very good at her job. Would you agree?
Yes,
She found a career that fit her calling very, very well.
yes,
And that calling was working directly with children who were undergoing severe medical issues.
yes,
Okay. And you knowing Brenda and her opening enough to talk to you about work and on those Christmas Eves that she thought it was important, she recognized some of the struggles that these children were going through.
yes,
Their anxiety, their depression.
yes,
And you also mentioned that at some point on March 3rd, that Brenda called you that morning.
Yep.
yes,
And she was talking about, hey, spring break's coming, Sydney's gonna come home, we're gonna go shopping. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay, and you were invited to that.
yes,
During that conversation, Brenda, she didn't know that Sydney was unenrolled at Mount Union.
I'm sorry, what?
Brenda didn't know that Sydney was unenrolled,
I don't believe she did, no.
and Brenda didn't know that Miss Powell, that Sydney was on probation a year ago, that she was struggling with those grades.
She didn't seem to.
Oh, okay. See, now more things are being uncovered. So she was hiding shit from her mom. Like I said, there's no such thing as, paradise, to be honest. Like, there's always going to be problems, big or small. And you know how kids, they take the smallest thing and they think it's the end of the world. So maybe she took her mom out thinking that, being expelled was going to be like the end of the world. And you had to get rid of her.
Know that, but she did know that something was going on with Sydney.
And you mentioned that at some point, this is, I'm guessing 12 or 13 days after March 3rd, after the murder took place, that Miss Powell was able to leave the hospital and leave the jail. And you supported that bond
Absolutely.
decision. Okay, and immediately Miss Powell is living with you.
Yes.
Okay. And you stated that after her release from the hospital, she started to take medication. But that medication originally was having a pretty strong effect on her?
The medication that she was taking originally is what was prescribed at her discharge from the hospital.
Okay. And you told, sorry, real quick.
Go
You
ahead.
told Attorney Malarczyk that she seemed a little down while she was on it, a little withdrawn.
Yes, I guess that would work for the discussion.
And then they were able to change her medication in order to better help her so she had more life to her. Is that correct? You said sparkle in her eye or something?
I think some of it was getting her body to adjust, and some of it was after she went to Dr. Smartnick.
Dr. Smart Nick. Dr. Smartnick. I can't with that last name, bro.
Added and subtracted and did what he needed to do to get her on the right dosages.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown.
All right, well, that was pretty much it. They just wanted to cross-check a few things. Now, we're going to continue on with this trial because it is a weird one. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, they're going to try to blame mental health. And that's the defense's favorite thing to do. They're going to get an expert. They're going to say that, oh, she's bipolar, schizophrenic, one or the other. They're going to shoot her up with a bunch of medication and hope for the best. And that usually does not end well. They end up still going to jail. So we're going to keep up with this story. I love you guys. I appreciate every single last one of you guys, man. We made it to 10.6K subscribers, guys. Get me to 11K. Shoot me up. Go check out the Patreon. Go check out the Instagram. I will see you guys in the next one. Stay inside. Stay safe. I'm out.